I saw my daughter-in-law pack a nurse's uniform, a nun's habit, and 12 new condoms into her suitcase, while my son lay motionless in his bed. The next day, I got her lover's number and called him. "Congratulations, you're going to be a father. Tell my daughter-in-law she no longer has a home to come back to." I took all of her things to his house, and what his wife said left my blood cold. I'm glad you're here. If you're watching this video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're listening to my story of revenge from. I want to know how far it has traveled. The atmosphere in the hospital was heavy. The smell of antiseptic clung to every breath. I squeezed Ethan's bony hand. His cold fingers pierced my heart. My son, at just 32 years old, lay there, pale, his eyes sunken from the endless days of fighting that cursed illness. The doctor had just left, leaving behind a few cold instructions. The weather was changing. I needed to bring more light clothing and some personal items for Ethan. The doctor's gaze, filled with both concern and helplessness, cut me like a knife. I nodded, but only one thought remained in my head. I must be by my son's side, without leaving for even a moment. That afternoon, I hurriedly caught a Greyhound bus back home. The street was dusty, the horns blared non-stop, but I paid no attention. I didn't call Chloe, my daughter-in-law, because I thought I would just grab a few things and return to the hospital immediately. I didn't want to waste a single minute away from Ethan. Chloe, whom I had always considered a daughter, never stopped repeating how much she loved her husband, how much she cared for him. I had believed her. I had trusted her to be my son's support in these dark days. The house was silent when I entered. The living room was empty, not a soul in sight. The midday light streamed through the window, illuminating suspended dust particles, as if the entire world were holding its breath. I didn't think much of it. I just wanted to grab the clothes and leave. I went upstairs and pushed open the door to Ethan and Chloe's room, convinced I would find some clean clothes for my son there. But as soon as I opened the door, I froze. In the middle of the floor, a large suitcase lay wide open. The clothes inside were perfectly folded, but they weren't the kind I had ever seen Chloe wear to work. The first thing that caught my eye was a white nurse's uniform, so pristine it was unsettling, next to a black nun's habit, strange and out of place for any occasion I could imagine. My heart began to beat faster. A dark premonition washed over me. I moved closer, and then I saw it. A new box of condoms, tucked into the side pocket of the suitcase. I stood there, my feet glued to the floor. The box of condoms, the costumes. What were they doing there? Yes, Chloe was a nurse, but she worked in a hospital, not in a stage play. I tried to find a logical explanation, but my heart was already screaming at me that something was wrong. Carefully, I lifted the top layer of clothes. Underneath were luxurious items I had never seen in Chloe's possession. A bottle of expensive perfume, still sealed, whose intense scent escaped as I touched it. A pair of red heels, the kind only worn by girls who want to show off. And a dark red lipstick, a color Chloe had never worn in front of me. All of it, mixed together so strangely, seemed like a carefully prepared setup to hide something shady. My eyes scanned the room for more clues. On the nightstand beside the bed, among a pile of messy papers, I saw a taxi receipt. I picked it up with a trembling hand. The destination was a tourist town on the coast, a place that had nothing to do with Chloe's work. She had told me the hospital only sent her to medical conferences in major cities. So, what was this receipt? What did this trip mean? My throat tightened, as if someone were squeezing it hard. I wanted to scream, to call Chloe immediately and demand an explanation, but reason told me to stay calm. I needed more proof, to understand what was happening before confronting her. But my heart, a mother's heart, was already beginning to break. I had dedicated my entire life to protecting Ethan, to building a home for my son, and now, standing in the middle of that room, I felt the whole world crumbling beneath my feet. Before I could piece it all together, a noise from the street startled me. The neighbor's dog was barking loudly, followed by the sound of a key turning in the lock. Chloe had arrived. My heart pounded like a drum, sweat running down my forehead. I half closed the lid of the suitcase, trying to make everything look untouched. I backed away quickly into the hallway, closing the door just in time to hear her footsteps coming up the stairs. She walked into the house with a small bag in her hand, her face radiant as if she had nothing to hide. Seeing me, she gave a wide, clear-voiced smile. "Mom, you're back? I just bought a few things for the upcoming trip." That smile, that voice, once brought me warmth, as if I had gained another daughter. But now, they only sent shivers down my spine. I looked into her eyes, trying to find a trace of a lie, but all I found was an unsettling confidence. I forced a strained smile, my voice dry. "Yes, I came to get a few things for Ethan." I didn't dare look her straight in the face, afraid my eyes would give everything away. I hurried to the closet, randomly grabbed a few of Ethan's light garments, and nearly ran out of the house. When the door closed behind me, I felt as though I had escaped a trap, but the suspicion inside me grew, heavy as a rock on my chest. That afternoon, Ethan woke up from a restless sleep, his tired eyes barely opened, looking at me with a thread of hope. "Mom, did you see Chloe? Is she home?" His voice was weak, as if the wrong answer could shatter what little strength he had left. I squeezed his hand, feeling his cold fingers in mine. The pain was tearing me apart, but I only dared to answer vaguely. "Yes, she's preparing for a work trip." I didn't want to look him in the eyes, fearing my own would betray the doubts screaming inside me. I turned my face away, pretending to adjust the sheet over him, when in reality I was trying to hide the tremor shaking my chest. Returning home late that night, I couldn't stop thinking about the suitcase and the strange items in Chloe's room. The box of condoms, the nurse's uniform, the shiny red heels, it all felt like pieces of a puzzle I still didn't dare to face. I had raised Ethan with all my love, sacrificing my younger years to give him a good life. And when Chloe entered his world, with her sweet smile and promises of love, I thought I had finally found a daughter-in-law who would care for him as I did. But now, that trust was crumbling, shattered into pieces that pierced my heart. The house was silent when I entered again. The ticking of the wall clock marked time with a steady beat, reminding me that it waits for no one, not even for a mother trying to protect her son from a painful truth. I decided I had to clear things up. I couldn't let doubt consume me for another second. I sat at the dining room table, took a deep breath, and waited for Chloe. She appeared shortly after, coming downstairs with a radiant face, as if she had nothing to hide. "Have you had dinner, Mom?" Chloe asked, her voice as sweet as ever. I nodded, struggling to remain calm. "I already ate at the hospital." "Is your trip so important that you prepared for it so carefully?" I looked her straight in the eye, hoping to catch a small tremor, a hint of doubt. But Chloe answered instantly, so smoothly that a chill ran down my spine. "Yes, Mom. I have to attend a medical conference in Orlando. It's only for 3 days. It's an advanced training course, very important." She even smiled, her tone full of pride. "The hospital is covering part of the expenses, so I'm taking the opportunity to rest a bit too." Chloe's words were smooth, perfect, like a well-rehearsed speech, but I was no longer the naive mother-in-law who believed everything she said. I nodded, pretending to believe her story, but deep down, I knew she was hiding something. "Oh, really? That's nice," I replied in a neutral voice, and turned away so she wouldn't see my distrust. That night, Chloe ate with a strange haste. She practically devoured her food, glancing at the clock every few moments. "I'm full now, Mom. With your permission, I'm going to make a quick call to my colleagues to talk about the conference," she said, getting up to clear the plates with surprising speed. I nodded, but when she left the kitchen, I couldn't help but follow her silently. From the corner of the hallway, I could hear her voice through the living room door. "Don't forget to bring the reservation paperwork. Don't leave it behind. I want everything to be perfect." Her soft laugh sounded light, but it cut like a knife. I couldn't hear more because my silhouette was reflected on the wooden floor. Chloe hung up immediately, turning with a forced smile. "Do you need something, Mom?" "No. I was just getting a glass of water," I replied, turning away, though I felt my heart being squeezed. "Reservation paperwork? What kind of medical conference requires reservation paperwork prepared by someone else?" I went back to the kitchen, my hands trembling as I poured the water, but my mind was fixed on one idea. Chloe was deceiving me. And worse, she was deceiving Ethan too. After dinner, Chloe cleaned up quickly, like a whirlwind, and slammed her bedroom door shut. From outside, I heard the sound of the suitcase being dragged, things being packed in a hurry. I stood in front of my bedroom door, my hand gripping the arm of a chair, trying to contain the rage boiling inside me. I wanted to go in, pound on her door, and scream that I knew everything, that I was aware of what she was hiding. But I didn't. I needed more proof. I had to be sure I wasn't mistaken. Because if I was wrong, if I accused Chloe without grounds, I would hurt Ethan, my son, who was fighting for his life second by second in a hospital bed. I barely slept that night. The image of the open suitcase, the box of condoms, and the taxi receipt replayed in my mind like a nightmare. I lay in bed, my eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling, my heart pounding. I thought of Ethan, of the days I rocked him as a baby, of the sleepless nights I spent caring for him whenever he was sick. I had done everything to protect him, and now, just when he needed me most, I had to face the possibility that the wife he loved so much was betraying him. In the middle of the night, a faint noise from Chloe's room startled me awake. As if pushed by something inexplicable, I sat up in bed and walked silently down the hallway. The door to her room was slightly ajar, and a dim lamplight filtered out from inside. I held my breath, pressed myself against the wall, and peeked through the crack. Then, the scene that unfolded before my eyes made the blood in my veins run cold. Chloe was sitting on the bed, a small, sharp needle in her hand, next to the box of condoms I had seen in the suitcase. One by one, calmly, she poked tiny holes in the tip, slow, precise, chilling movements. Her face, under that yellowish light, was no longer the sweet face I knew. It was cold, focused, as if she were performing a secret ritual, a minutely calculated plan. I wanted to scream, to rush in and snatch the needle from her, but my feet seemed nailed to the floor. I just stood there, watching her wipe each condom with a tissue, place them back in the box as if nothing had happened, and then put them in the suitcase. Then she turned off the light, and the room plunged into darkness. I returned to my room, my heart squeezed tight as if by an invisible hand. A shiver ran down my spine, and I trembled uncontrollably. The image of Ethan, weak in his hospital bed, mingled with that of Chloe patiently piercing the condoms. What was she doing? Why? A terrifying plan began to form in my mind. I didn't want to believe it, but it was too obvious. Chloe wasn't just betraying Ethan. She was setting a trap, something crueler than I could have imagined. I lay down, but sleep wouldn't come. I hugged my chest, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to fall. I thought of all the years Ethan and I had shared, of the times I wiped his tears when he failed, of the moments he hugged me and said, "Mom, you're everything to me." And now, the wife he loved so dearly, the woman I had trusted, was about to destroy it all. Before falling into a light, restless sleep, I heard Chloe whisper on the phone from her room, "I'm ready. After this trip, you'll never be able to leave me again." The next morning, Chloe appeared early, dragging the suitcase I had seen the night before. She wore a light coat, her hair pulled up high, and she didn't look at all like a nurse heading to a medical conference. She walked while talking on the phone, laughing softly in the morning silence. "Don't worry, I have everything ready," she said in a sweet but calculated voice. Before getting into the waiting taxi, she turned, looked at me from the window, and smiled radiantly. "Mom, please take care of Ethan for me. I'll be gone for 3 days. I'll call you and him." I nodded, forcing a smile, but my fingers were gripping the curtains so tightly they turned white. When the taxi pulled away, I ran to grab a piece of paper and wrote down the car's license plate number. I didn't know what I would do with it, only that I had to do something. Watching it disappear down the street, I went back into the house with a heavy heart. A decision was forming inside me. I had to uncover the truth, no matter how much it hurt. At noon, I returned to the hospital and sat by Ethan's bed. He looked a little better that day. His eyes shone brighter, though he was still weak. He took my hand and said in a hoarse voice, "Mom, did Chloe leave on her trip? I hope she comes back soon." His naive words were like a knife in my heart. I wanted to scream everything at him. About the suitcase, the pierced condoms, Chloe's fake smile. But I couldn't. Seeing his pale face, I squeezed his hand and whispered, "Yes, she's already left. Rest now. I'm here with you." Inside, however, I felt like I was betraying him, keeping a terrible secret that was consuming me. I can't bear the thought of Ethan still trusting Chloe, still loving her, while she's plotting something that could destroy his life. I think of the years I've sacrificed, the sleepless nights caring for Ethan when he was little, the times I swallowed my tears to smile at him, just so he wouldn't worry. I've done everything for Ethan, and now I can't let the wife he trusts destroy him. I have to act. That afternoon, I went to see Mr. Sullivan, a retired private investigator my lifelong friend, Rosa, had recommended. His office was on the second floor of an old building where the smell of stale tobacco and coffee hung in the air. The room was small, with just a peeling wooden desk, an old armchair, and a few crooked family photos on the wall. Mr. Sullivan, with his weathered face and cold, penetrating eyes, sat across from me, listening in silence. I didn't hide anything from him, from the suitcase and the punctured condoms to the taxi receipt and Chloe's suspicious call. I handed him a piece of paper with the taxi's license plate number and another with the address of the hotel Chloe had left forgotten on the table. "I need to know the truth," I said, my voice trembling. "My son is in the hospital. He doesn't deserve this." Mr. Sullivan nodded, not saying much, just jotting down a few lines in his small notebook. "Rest assured," he said in a grave, even voice. "If she's not innocent, we'll soon find out." His words didn't comfort me, but they gave me a sliver of hope. I left the office feeling as though I had shed part of the burden, but the pain was still there, sharp, relentlessly reminding me of everything I could lose. The next morning, my phone vibrated. It was Mr. Sullivan. His voice was calm on the other end of the line. "I have the first photos. Chloe didn't go to the bus terminal for Orlando, as she claimed. She got out at a diner on the outskirts of the city and met a man. They had lunch together, very close." I gripped the phone, feeling my blood boil. "How close?" I asked. My voice choked. "Mr. Sullivan replied, ever serene. They sat very close, touched hands, and laughed as if they'd known each other for a long time. I overheard them talking about a decisive trip and how everything was going to change after this. Those words were like a punch to the gut. I sank into a chair, still holding the phone. Decisive trip. The phrase echoed in my head, conjuring the image of Chloe with a needle in her hand, a cold smile on her face as she whispered on the phone last night. I knew she was planning something, but hearing it confirmed by Mr. Sullivan was unbearable. "Did you see the man's face?" I asked, my voice broken. "It's not clear," he answered, "but I'll keep watching. What do you want me to do now?" "Keep following her," I said, my voice firmer than I imagined. "I need to know everything. I need proof." I hung up, feeling the entire world swaying beneath my feet. I thought of Ethan, of his smile when he talked about Chloe, of the way he would take my hand and tell me how lucky he was to have a wife like her. Every memory was now like a stab wound, cutting deep into my heart. I had trusted Chloe, I had seen her as a daughter, I had opened the door of my family to her. And what was she doing now? Betraying my son. Betraying me. Betraying everything we had built. That night, as I sat in the kitchen trying to eat a bowl of cold soup, my phone vibrated again. A message from Mr. Sullivan. I opened it and felt my heart stop. It was a photo, clearly showing the license plate of an old pickup truck. Below it, a short note. "Already have a lead on him." I stared at the photo, memorizing every number on the plate. This man, the one Chloe was laughing and talking with so familiarly, who was he? Did he know Ethan was confined to a bed, so weak he couldn't even sit up? Did he know that every day I prayed for my son's life while Chloe was plotting to destroy it? The next morning, Mr. Sullivan summoned me to a small corner cafe, where the aroma of roasted beans mixed with old songs on the radio. I arrived early. I sat at a secluded table, clutching a glass of water, trying to control my trembling. When Sullivan walked in, with his deliberate gait and his perpetually hardened face, a shiver ran down my spine. He said nothing. He simply placed a stack of photos in front of me and sat down. "Look at them," he said, his voice as heavy as stone. I took a deep breath. With shaking hands, I opened the packet. The first photo made my heart shrink. Chloe sitting in the old pickup truck, smiling radiantly next to a man. He, with messy hair and a wrinkled shirt, leaned toward her, his hand resting on her shoulder as if it were the most natural thing in the world. The next image took my breath away. Both of them were getting out of the vehicle, hand in hand, entering a cheap roadside motel with a faintly blinking neon sign. The last photo was the final blow. Chloe had her arms around his shoulders, while he whispered something in her ear, and the smile on her lips held a dark meaning. I dropped the photos on the table, feeling the world collapse. Each image was proof, an open wound in the trust I once had in Chloe. I looked at Sullivan, trying to keep my voice from breaking. "Who is he?" Sullivan adjusted his glasses, responding calmly. "That man's name is Mark Herrera, a welder who lives on the outskirts. And this is the most important part. He's already married. His wife's name is Jessica, and she's a nurse at the city's public hospital. They have 3 young children." His words were like a direct slap to the face. Not only had Ethan been betrayed, but another family was also being destroyed. Chloe, the woman I considered a daughter, was not only cheating on my son but had dared to meddle in the life of another woman, another mother like me. A wave of fury washed over me, mixed with a deep pain. I had trusted her. I had opened my home to her. I thought she would be the one to care for Ethan when I could no longer be there. But now, what was she doing? Destroying everything without a moment's hesitation. "There's more," Mr. Sullivan continued, his voice still calm but heavy with weight. I recorded a snippet as they were leaving the motel. He took out his phone, pressed a button, and Chloe's voice echoed, cold and calculating. "If I get pregnant, you won't be able to shirk your responsibility." The man's voice, Mark's, was just a prolonged silence. I listened, feeling the blood in my veins turn to ice. The image of Chloe piercing the condoms the other night appeared with crystal clarity. She wasn't just cheating. She had planned to trap Mark, forcing him to stay with her. I thought of Ethan, of his innocent eyes when he spoke of Chloe, and my heart felt like it was being squeezed by a vice. Mr. Sullivan handed me a card with the information of a friend of his who worked at a workshop. "He confirms that Mark is a regular customer," he said. "He often brags about his wife and his 3 young children, as if he's the most exemplary man in the world." I took the card, clenching it until it crumpled. A married man, with children, and yet he let Chloe drag him into this dirty game. And she, not only had she betrayed Ethan, but she was also destroying another woman's happiness, the happiness of innocent children. On my way home, I walked like a lost soul. The familiar streets now seemed alien, as if the entire world had changed overnight. I stopped at the corner, where my neighbor, Brenda, was sweeping her patio. Seeing me, she took my arm and whispered, "Clara, last night I saw your daughter-in-law getting into a taxi with a strange man. They didn't look like colleagues at all." He had his arm around her shoulders, laughing as if they were a couple. Brenda looked at me with compassion, as if she knew I was carrying a weight impossible to share. I just nodded, muttering, "Thanks, Brenda." But inside, all the pieces had already fallen into place. Her words only confirmed what I feared. That night, I sat alone in the kitchen under the yellowish light. In front of me were Mr. Sullivan's photos, spread out like cards of fate. Each image was a stab, each detail a reminder that I had been deceived. I saw Chloe in those photos, smiling radiantly next to Mark, and I wondered, at what point did she become this person? She had sat at this very table, eating the food I cooked, calling me Mom with sweetness. I had believed her, I had loved her, I had thought she would be the one to care for Ethan in my place. But now, everything was revealed as a farce. My hands trembled as I picked up the phone. I looked at Mark's number, which Mr. Sullivan had sent me, and I felt my whole body shake with rage and pain. I wanted to scream at him, to ask him how he dared to shatter my family, how he could let Chloe drag him into this sick game. But I knew I had to stay calm. If I wanted to protect Ethan, I had to act with a clear head. "It's time to end this charade," I told myself, with a firmness I didn't even recognize. I dialed Mark's number. The ringing sound was cold and tense, like a countdown to the moment the truth would be revealed. After a few seconds, a hoarse, sharp voice answered. "Hello?" I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice as steady as possible. "Is this Mark Herrera?" On the other end of the line, there was a moment of silence. Then his voice sounded alert. "Who's calling?" I could clearly hear the buzz of a welding torch and the clang of metal in the background, as if he were in a repair shop. I didn't beat around the bush. I went straight to the point. I'm Chloe Ramirez's mother-in-law. I'm calling to congratulate you because you're about to be a father. Silence. The machine shut off abruptly, and I could feel the panic through the phone. Mark's voice trembled, full of awkwardness. I'm sorry, ma'am, what are you talking about? I emphasized each word with an icy tone. From now on, you can tell Chloe she no longer has a home to come back to. All of her belongings will soon be sent directly to you. This time, Mark's voice sounded genuinely scared. Wait. Was she already married? He spoke more softly, as if he had moved to a secluded corner. She told me she was single. I swear I didn't know anything. His words came out weak, loaded with excuses, but I no longer cared if they were true or not. I let out a cold, sharp laugh. You should explain that to your wife, Jessica. As for my son, he won't be deceived for another day. I hung up the phone, my heart pounding, but with a decision of iron in my chest. I wasn't going to let Chloe and Mark continue to hurt Ethan. I stood up, feeling my whole body tremble with rage and pain. I thought of Ethan, of his naive gaze when he talked about Chloe, of the way he would take my hand and say he was lucky to have a wife like her. Each memory was now an open, bleeding wound. I couldn't let her keep deceiving my son. I couldn't let her destroy this family anymore. Without hesitation, I began to pack Chloe's things. I opened her bedroom door, took out every piece of clothing, every pair of shoes, every cosmetic from the closet. Each object was a reminder of her deceit. The white nurse's uniform, the red heels, the expensive perfume. I threw everything into cardboard boxes without the slightest remorse. I moved like a machine, not allowing myself to stop, because if I did, I was afraid I would break down. I thought about the meals I cooked for her, the times I hugged her when she cried about work, the times I called her daughter. It was all a bitter joke now. Mr. Henderson, the kind neighbor, saw me hunched over in the yard and crossed the fence. Is something wrong, Clara? Why are you packing like this? He looked at the stacked boxes with concern in his eyes. I just shook my head, my voice tired. I'm just getting rid of some old things, Mr. Henderson. Could I borrow your pickup truck? He nodded, without asking any more questions, though his gaze told me he understood something wasn't right. Do you need help with anything else? He asked. I shook my head again, forcing a smile. Thank you, I can handle it myself. As evening fell, dark clouds covered the sky. I drove Mr. Henderson's pickup, loaded with Chloe's boxes, towards the area where Mark lived. The dirt road made the truck shake violently, as if mirroring the storm inside me. I gripped the steering wheel tightly, trying to stay calm, but every turn of the wheels brought me closer to a confrontation I didn't know if I had the strength to face. I stopped in front of a modest one-story house, with half-painted walls and a small weed-filled yard. Just as I turned off the engine, the front door opened, and a woman came out. She was wearing a nurse's uniform, her hair tied back, her face tired but still reflecting the strength of a mother. There was no doubt. It was Jessica, Mark's wife. I looked at her and, for a moment, I saw myself a woman who had dedicated her life to protecting her family, only to be faced with betrayal. I got out of the truck, trying to stay calm, though I was boiling inside. Hello? Are you Jessica Herrera? I asked, forcing myself to sound polite. Jessica looked at me with suspicion, then glanced at the cardboard boxes in the truck. Yes, that's me. I'm sorry. Who are you? She replied, her voice soft but cautious, as if she sensed something was wrong. I took a deep breath, the air feeling heavy in my chest. I am Chloe Ramirez's mother-in-law, I said, each word torn from a bleeding heart, and these are all of her belongings. I think you should know that your husband, Mark, has been having an affair with my daughter-in-law this whole time. Jessica's face went pale, as if the blood had drained from her body. The grocery bag she was holding fell to the ground, and some yogurts rolled onto the grass. She stammered, her voice trembling. What did you say? Mark? With Chloe? No, that can't be. She shook her head, as if trying to deny reality, but her eyes were already filling with panic. In her, I recognized myself again, a woman who had put her soul into her family, only to be betrayed by those she loved most. I said nothing more, simply walked to the nearest box and lifted the lid. Chloe's clothes, a pair of red heels, a bottle of expensive perfume, all spilled out under the dim evening light. Each object was a confirmation that my words were true. Jessica collapsed onto the step, covering her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking with sobs. From inside the house, a child's voice called out, innocent and clear, "Mommy, is Daddy home yet?" That call was like a knife in both our hearts. I felt my eyes burn, but I pressed my lips together to keep from crying. I hadn't come here to cry. I had come to protect Ethan, and Jessica too. Mr. Henderson, the kind neighbor who had come with me, spoke cautiously. "Ma'am, it's true. We don't want to disturb your family, but the truth has to come out." His voice was gentle, but it carried a weight, as if he wanted to share the burden with Jessica. She looked up, her eyes red, and murmured bitterly, "I just finished making dinner. I was still waiting for him." Her words broke, as if her whole world was collapsing in front of her. I moved closer and placed my hand on her shoulder, feeling her body tremble beneath my palm. "I'm a mother too," I said, my voice compassionate but firm, "and I have to protect my son. Unfortunately, both you and I are victims in this story." I looked into her eyes and saw her pain mirroring my own. We were two women, two mothers, forced into a war neither of us had sought, all because of the selfishness of those we once believed were worthy of our trust. Jessica squeezed my hand. Her gaze became intense. "Do you have proof?" "I need to see the proof." Her voice trembled, but it was filled with determination, as if she were trying to cling to the last hope that this was all a misunderstanding. I remained silent, took Miss Sullivan's photo album from my bag, and handed it to her. Trembling, Jessica flipped through the pages one by one, each photograph like another stab to her heart. When she reached the photo of Mark and Chloe holding hands entering a motel, she broke into sobs, her strangled cries tearing through the quiet evening. Suddenly, the phone in her purse rang. The screen lit up, clearly displaying two words, "Mark." Jessica's hands shook as if the phone were on fire. She looked at me, looked at the screen, and finally, with a decisive gesture, she rejected the call. "He's not worth it," she whispered, her voice filled with rage. She turned to me, her gaze no longer one of desperation but burning with anger. "Leave everything here. When he gets back, I'll show him what hell is." I nodded, feeling a part of the burden lift, though the pain was still there, sharp, reminding me of what I had lost. I went back to the truck with Mr. Henderson, and we unloaded the boxes into the yard. Each box was like a declaration of war, a final end to Chloe's presence in my life and Ethan's. When we set down the last box, I looked at Jessica one more time. She was still sitting motionless on the doorstep, clutching her phone, her gaze lost. On the horizon, a bolt of lightning tore through the dark sky, and a clap of thunder announced the coming storm. That night, I sat by Ethan's hospital bed. The dim light of the night lamp illuminated my son's pale face. The beeping of the machines set a sad rhythm that reminded me of the days we fought together. Suddenly, my phone vibrated in my pocket, breaking the silence of the room. I looked at the screen, and my heart sank when I saw Chloe's name. I took a deep breath, containing the rage that was rising in my chest, and answered. Her voice came through, cheerful and confident, as if nothing had happened. "Mom, I've arrived in Orlando. The conference is so busy. I have to give a presentation tomorrow morning." I could hear the clinking of glasses, the murmur of a man nearby, and the fake smile in her voice. Those smooth, fluid lies were like a stab wound. I contained my anger, my voice as cold as ice. "Aha, you must be very busy. So busy that you forgot your things in front of Mark Herrera's house." I emphasized each word, as if trying to pierce the armor of falsehood she had built. On the other end of the line, there was absolute silence, only Chloe's ragged breathing. I could imagine her face now, her eyes desperate, her smile frozen. After a few seconds, she stammered, her voice trembling. "Mom, I don't understand what you're talking about." I didn't give her a chance to continue her act. "You and that welder have been exposed," I said clearly, my voice as firm as stone. "His wife, Jessica, already knows everything. Who do you think you can still fool?" My words were like a blow, and I could feel Chloe's panic through the phone. She didn't answer. All I could hear was her agitated breathing, as if she were trying to find an excuse and couldn't. At that moment, my phone vibrated again. It was a call from Jessica. I answered, and her voice came through, choked with rage and pain. "Mrs. Clark, give me that wretched woman's number. I need to talk to her." I didn't hesitate. I immediately connected the call so the two women could confront each other through those invisible waves. Chloe's voice erupted, shrill and desperate. "Sister, you're mistaken. Mark and I just have a working relationship." But Jessica didn't let her finish. She roared with such force that it drowned out the sound of the rain falling outside. "Enough with the lies. I have the proof right here in my hands. What kind of woman are you, to abandon your sick husband to go and steal another woman's husband?" Jessica's voice trembled with anger and pain. Every word was like a gash. I stood there, listening to that tense conversation, feeling my heart break in two. Chloe let out a sob and abruptly hung up, leaving a chilling silence. I sat by Ethan's bed, squeezing his hand, but I didn't dare tell him anything of what had just happened. Outside, the rain was relentless, as if the sky itself was crying for my pain. I thought of Ethan, of the days I had stood by him through so many difficulties, of the times I had wiped his tears and promised him everything would be all right. But now, I didn't know how to protect him from this truth. Should I tell him Chloe had betrayed him? That the wife he loved had planned to trap another man? I couldn't do it. Not when Ethan was so weak. But I also couldn't let her continue to deceive him. I barely slept that night. I stayed by Ethan's side, watching him sleep soundly, and I felt as though the entire world was falling apart. I thought of Jessica, of the fury in her eyes as she held Mr. Sullivan's photos. I thought of Chloe, with her fake smile and smooth lies. And I thought of myself, a mother who had spent her life building a home, only to see it crumble because of the betrayal of someone I treated like a daughter. The next morning, my neighbor, Brenda, came to the hospital to visit Ethan. She pulled me aside into a corner of the hallway and whispered in my ear, "Last night, I saw your daughter-in-law sitting on the porch of a strange house on the outskirts, completely soaked from the rain." Her words didn't surprise me. I knew Jessica had thrown her out of Mark's house and that she now had nowhere to go. But I felt no pity. She chose that path, and now she had to pay the price. That afternoon, I drove back home, my heart as heavy as the sky covered in dark clouds. A strange urge prompted me to take a detour to the outskirts, where Jessica and Mark's modest house was. I didn't want to see Chloe. I didn't want to face the daughter-in-law who had betrayed Ethan, but a part of me needed to witness it with my own eyes. I needed to know that the price of her lies was being paid. The bumpy dirt road led me to the outskirts, where simple houses were scattered among weed-filled yards. The rain began to fall. Heavy drops hit the windshield as if accompanying the storm inside me. When I stopped the car in front of Mark's house, the scene was exactly as Brenda had described. Chloe was huddled on the step, her hair tangled and her soaked clothes clinging to her body. The suitcase and cardboard boxes I left yesterday were strewn about in the rain. Some items, carried by the wind, were rolling in the muddy road. The house door was closed, showing no signs of life, except for the sharp cry of a child from within, mixed with Jessica's furious shouts. "I told you to get out. This is no place for people like you." Her voice was sharp, full of resentment, like a mother defending her home from an intruder. I stayed in the car, a few yards away, watching Chloe pound on the door, her voice hoarse, almost desperate. "Mark, open up! I need to talk to you. I have nowhere to go." Mark's voice came from inside, weak and cowardly. "Chloe, just go. I can't do anything." His words were like the final knife, cutting off all her hope. Jessica immediately silenced him, yelling, "Shut up. Leave this to me. Did you hear that, Chloe? He's already chosen this family. You were just a passing fling." Jessica's shouts echoed in the humid air, loud and relentless. I gripped the steering wheel tightly, my gaze fixed on Chloe. A gust of wind blew open the suitcase. Clothes, cosmetics, the red heels, everything flew out onto the muddy road. Chloe knelt clumsily, trying to gather each item, but the rain mixed with her tears made it all futile. She clutched a soaked garment, her hands trembling, as if trying to hold on to the remnants of a plan that had already collapsed. I remained in the car, my heart frozen. I felt no compassion for Chloe. She had chosen this path, to betray Ethan, to deceive me, and to shatter Jessica's family. But in that moment, seeing her huddled in the rain, I didn't feel victorious. I felt a deep pain, the pain of a mother who once loved her as a daughter, who believed she would be Ethan's support when I was no longer around. Every drop of rain reminded me that my trust had been betrayed, that the home I built for my son had been violated by someone I had come to call family. Some neighbors started to gather under their eaves, murmuring, "That's the girl from yesterday, isn't it?" one woman whispered. "What's she doing here?" another replied. I heard those words, but I didn't turn my head. I didn't need to hear anything more. I already knew the truth, and that truth hurt more than any whisper. Chloe continued to pound on the door, her voice growing weaker and hoarser. "Jessica, please, I don't want to destroy your family. Let me talk to Mark." But there was no answer, only the child's cries and the rain falling harder. After nearly an hour of knocking in vain, Chloe gave up. She slumped onto the step, covering her face as she sobbed, her tears mixing with the rain. The yellowish light of the street lamp came on, illuminating her broken figure, as if the whole world was witnessing the fall of a traitor. I sat there, watching her from a distance, with no intention of approaching. A part of me wanted to get out of the car, scream in her face, ask her how she could be so heartless to Ethan, to me, to Mark's own family. But I didn't. I knew this was the price she had to pay, and I didn't need to do anything more to punish her. Life had already done it for me. Night fell, and the rain intensified. I turned the car around and slowly left the outskirts. In the rearview mirror, I could still see Chloe's figure, small and miserable, huddled under the street lamp. I knew that sooner or later she would be back, and the only place she could think of was my house, just as I had imagined. That night, when I returned from the hospital, Chloe was curled up on the front steps. Her clothes were still soaked from the previous night's rain, her tangled hair stuck to her pale face, her suitcase and a few bags thrown to one side like the shattered pieces of a broken plan. I knew she would come here, that it was the only place she could think of, but that didn't soften me. Seeing me get out of the car, Chloe struggled to her feet, ran to hug my legs, and cried inconsolably. Mother, let me in the house! I know I was wrong." "Please, give me a chance to take care of Ethan again." Her voice was hoarse, trembling, like that of an abandoned child. Tears streamed down her face, but to me, it was just another performance, an act I was tired of watching. I looked at Chloe coldly and pushed her hand off my legs. "My son doesn't need a wife like you," I said in a dry, emotionless tone. "If you want, the porch is still free." I opened the gate but stood in the doorway, blocking her from entering. Chloe knelt right there, clinging to my legs, pleading through sobs. "Mom, please, I have nowhere to go. I'll do anything to redeem myself." But I simply shook my head, turned my back, and went inside, slamming the door shut. Her cries echoed behind the wood throughout the night, but in my heart, there wasn't a single shred of compassion. I had loved Chloe. I had considered her a daughter. I thought she would be the one to care for Ethan in my place. But now, every one of her tears was just a reminder of the betrayal, of the daggers she had plunged into my heart and my son's. I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling, listening to Chloe cry on the porch. Each of her sobs struck my chest like a hammer, but not out of pity for her. I hurt for Ethan, for my son who was still in a hospital bed, naive, believing that the wife he loved was busy with work. I thought of the days of sacrifice, the sleepless nights caring for Ethan, the times I wiped his tears and promised him everything would be okay. Now I had to face a cruel truth. I not only had to protect Ethan from his illness, but also from the woman he loved most. The next morning I arrived at the hospital early. Ethan immediately noticed my swollen eyes and asked with concern, "Mom, couldn't you sleep? Is something wrong?" His voice was weak, but full of care, just as he always worried about me, even while he himself was fighting death. I looked at him and felt a lump in my throat. I knew the time had come for Ethan to face the truth, even if it shattered him. I couldn't keep hiding it. I couldn't give Chloe the opportunity to keep deceiving my son. I stayed silent and took the stack of photos from Mr. Sullivan out of my bag. "Ethan, Mom needs you to see this," I said, my voice trembling. Ethan's hand shook as he took the photos. The more he looked, the paler he became. When he reached the photo of Chloe and Mark holding hands entering a motel, he cried out, his voice breaking, "No! It can't be! Chloe wouldn't do this to me." Ethan's cry tore through the air, and I felt my own heart break with each of my son's words. I passed him the phone, playing the voice recording of Chloe that Mr. Sullivan had sent me. Her voice came through, cold and calculating. "If I get pregnant, you won't be able to escape." Ethan was frozen. He dropped the phone, which fell onto the bed, and buried his face in the pillow, crying like a child. My son's cries, filled with pain and despair, were like a knife sinking into my chest. I sat beside him, put my arms around his shoulders, but I didn't know what to say. "Forgive me, Ethan," I whispered, tears falling silently. "I tried to protect you, but I couldn't." After a while, Ethan lifted his head, his eyes red, but his gaze firm. "Mom, from this day on, I don't want to see her again," he said, his voice hard, though still trembling. "I'm going to file for divorce." His words were like a ray of light in the darkness, but at the same time they hurt me more. I knew how much Ethan loved Chloe. I knew he had put his whole heart into that marriage, but now he had to destroy it with his own hands, all because of the betrayal of the woman he had trusted. That afternoon, while I was sitting with Ethan, there were knocks at the hallway door. I recognized Chloe's voice, high-pitched and desperate. "Ethan, please, open the door, I need to talk to you." She knocked relentlessly, crying, "I'm begging you, listen to me." But from inside, Ethan just shouted one sentence, his voice laden with pain and fury. "Go away. I never want to see your face again." Ethan's shout echoed in the hospital room, loud and decisive. I stayed there, holding my son's hand, feeling his strength, but also feeling my heart tighten. I had wanted to protect him from this pain, but now he had to face it alone. I looked towards the door, where Chloe was still crying, and I felt a strange emptiness. I no longer felt rage towards her, only weariness and disgust. Chloe had destroyed everything on her own, and now all that was left was for her to face the consequences of her bad decisions. In the following days, after Chloe was thrown out of the hospital, she vanished as if the earth had swallowed her. There were no calls, no messages. Some said she had gone to the big city to find work. Others claimed she was still lingering on the outskirts, surviving in cheap rooms. I didn't care. My heart had closed to her, like the door of my house that night. But every time I thought of Ethan, of my son's tears upon discovering the truth, my chest ached again. I, a 68-year-old mother, who had spent her whole life protecting her son, never imagined that one day I would have to protect him from the very woman he loved. A few months later, on a soft, sunny morning, Brenda knocked on my door. She came in with a look of concern, leaned close to my ear, and whispered, "Clara, your ex-daughter-in-law is back, with a huge belly." Her words didn't surprise me. I had sensed it since that night. I heard Chloe's voice on Mr. Sullivan's recording, when she spoke coldly of her plan to trap Mark. But hearing Brenda's confirmation still sent a chill down my spine. It wasn't out of pity for Chloe, but because I thought of the innocent creature growing in her womb, a being who would have to bear the consequences of its mother's mistakes. That same afternoon, I went to the market to buy food for Ethan. While I was picking out vegetables at a stand, I suddenly saw Chloe. She was standing on a corner of the market, gaunt and exhausted, her heavy belly making it difficult for her to move. Her clothes were old, mended all over, with no trace of the pretty daughter-in-law who once made me proud. Some vendors pointed behind her back, whispering among themselves, "That's the woman whose husband left her. They say she cheated and got pregnant by another man." I stood there, watching Chloe walk with her head down, avoiding the gazes. I didn't feel a shred of pity, just a strange emptiness. She chose that path, and now she was paying the price. I heard rumors that Mark had rejected the baby, saying it was a mistake. Jessica, his wife, upon discovering the truth, didn't hesitate to file for divorce, leaving Mark no chance to return. I thought of Jessica, of the firmness in her eyes when she confronted me that day, and I knew she would get through it, just as I was trying to protect Ethan. But Chloe, she had no one left, no family, no friends, not even a little dignity. Ethan, after days of being down, began to regain his strength. His illness was still there, but his spirits had improved. One morning, when I brought him his breakfast at the hospital, he looked at me and said in a firm voice, "Mom, I already signed the unilateral divorce papers. I don't want to be tied to her anymore." I nodded, took his hand, and felt the determination in his gaze. On the day of the hearing, Ethan didn't look at Chloe even once. She stood in a corner, her head bowed, unable to lift it. When the judge declared the marriage over, I saw Ethan's shoulders tremble, but he didn't cry. He just squeezed my hand tightly, as if to tell me he was ready to move on. It wasn't long before the news spread through the whole town like wildfire. Chloe had given birth to a baby girl in a room at a rundown apartment complex on the outskirts. The most shameless part, the thing that got everyone talking, was that on the birth certificate, she listed Ethan as the father. When that news reached my ears, I felt my blood boil. How dare she do that? Drag Ethan into her trap, even when it was all over. I immediately contacted our lawyer. Ethan, though still weak, demanded a DNA test without hesitation to prove his innocence. "I don't want my name tarnished," he said with contained rage. The result, as I expected, showed that the child was not Ethan's daughter. Mark, when summoned to court, publicly denied any responsibility. He declared that he wanted nothing to do with Chloe or with the child. Chloe, with a fatherless baby in her arms, became the laughingstock and the pity of the entire town. People looked at her with contempt, whispering behind her back whenever she appeared at the market or on the street. I sat in the kitchen, looking out the window, where the sunlight was fading over the familiar street. I closed my story, not with the joy of victory, but with a bitter serenity. You reap what you sow. Chloe paid for her wrong decisions, but that price wasn't just loneliness or shame. She will have to live the rest of her life with the shadow of the past, with the innocent child she dragged into the storm she herself created. As for Ethan, my son, although he lost a wife, he regained his peace and dignity. That night, I sat by Ethan's hospital bed, watching him sleep soundly. His hand was still holding mine, just as it did when he was a child having nightmares. Outside, the church bells rang, steady and serene, announcing that a new day had begun. I looked at Ethan, and my heart felt lighter than ever. The storm had passed, and though it left scars, I knew that we, my son and I, would move forward, stronger than ever. I have gone through all these trials with a mother's heart, and now, looking back, I just want to leave a message. In family life, trust and sincerity are irreplaceable foundations. When we give our whole heart to a relationship, betrayal not only destroys happiness, but also leaves wounds that are difficult for everyone to heal. But it is precisely from those ruins that I understood that no pain is useless. It teaches us to be stronger, to distinguish the true from the false, and to value the enduring nature of family bonds. Let us live with honesty. Let us not turn love into deceit, because in the end, you will reap what you sow, and only kindness has the strength to carry us through life's storms. The story you have just heard has had names and places changed to protect the identity of the people involved. We do not tell it to judge, but in the hope that someone will listen and stop to reflect. How many mothers are suffering in silence in their own homes? I truly wonder, if you were in my place, what would you do? Would you choose to remain silent to keep the peace? Or would you dare to face it all to reclaim your voice? I want to know your opinion, because every story can become a candle that lights the way for another. God always blesses, and I am convinced that courage will lead us to better days. Right now, on the end screen, I will leave 2 of the channel's most beloved stories. I am sure they will surprise you. Thank you for staying with me until this moment.